What's up, everybody? This is another episode of the B.O.P podcast on MisfitTV, the channel where we bring entertainment and sports talk directly to you. I am your host, Jay, and I am here with the homie Jake. Jake, how are you doing today, my guy?
We're doing good. We're doing good.
So today we are going to get into a little bit of playoff coverage as well as talk about some little off season, I guess, postseason movement taking place with the Chicago Bulls. But we're gonna start off with another playoff edition of fill in the blank. Now, Jake, we've already kind of quote unquote played this game already beforehand. But for anybody who hasn't seen our last episode, the way that this game works essentially is this simple. I'm gonna ask Jake a question in the form of a sentence that has a missing word or phrase in it, and Jake's essentially just going to answer the question and we're going to talk about it a little bit. So, Jake, the first thing that I want to ask you is the Miami Heat become the the 2020 NBA champions if they do what? What will it take for them to become champions of this year's NBA season?
They're going to really have to rely on their young players who, up to this point, have shown no signs of lack of experience. They've played like they've been there before and they're used to that kind of pressure. The NBA Finals is a whole different animal. But if their young players can play like they have been throughout these playoffs and not really crack under pressure, I think we're really gonna see the Heat put on a performance and really make a run at the finals win. I think the toughest thing for them is going to be if they get through this Boston series, how many losses they get, because this is a team that's, I think they've only lost 2 games this whole entire playoffs. And so they're used to winning. How we're still waiting to see how they come back in game 4 after losing to the Celtics and how they kind of handle that adversity of losing, because they haven't lost much in the playoffs at all. And so if they can show that they are able to bounce back and not lose momentum after a loss, I think that's crucial for their title run.
And my answer to the question would be don't be like the Raptors or the Atlanta Hawks of old. I know that sounds really crazy to like put out there, but like the assumption, or at least the majority belief, is that the Los Angeles Lakers are going to be the team that moves on in the West to the NBA Finals. And there tends to be this thing with younger teams, or teams that tend to cap out at a certain area. They tend to cap out around the time that they meet LeBron James. And it's one of those things where as soon as they take on a LeBron James led team, it's almost like they throw their identity out the window and they feel as though they need to scrap everything, do things completely different from what got them to where they are in the first place. And I think Miami needing to maintain that identity is important for them, because we saw it in the back end of the Milwaukee series. As soon as they started acting different, trying to get very Globetrotter-esque and very flashy with their play rather than the grit and grind style that they kind of have to, their overall roster in terms of every guy that they play on the floor, things got a little rocky. They gave up game 4 and game 5. Honestly, they could have lost that game 2 if it weren't for the fact that Chris Middleton wasn't, the world beater he was in game 4. So this is a team that when they don't play to their strengths and they get kind of besides themselves, they actually get in their way. And against a team led by LeBron James, the history shows that when teams move away from what brought them to the dance in the first place, they not only get folded, I mean, it gets ugly. I mean, Paul Millsap made it clear this past week that he has a horrible record against LeBron James. I think it's actually 0 and I guess 0 and 10 now.
Oh,
I think
10.
because it was
Yeah.
0 and 8. It was 0 and 8 entering this series because of the 2 times that he was on the those Atlanta Hawks teams. And now he has 2 losses on top of that with Denver, and it's still not really getting any prettier from this case, because right now we're almost having to beg Denver to potentially jump back from 3-1 again if things are continue in the
Hey,
direction that they're on.
I'm not. I'm not counting out the Nuggets at all anymore. I am not.
Yeah. I feel that one, bro. Because honestly, I was telling a friend about this the other day. You're just penciling the Lakers in for sweeping them. Like we didn't just do that with the Clippers. We didn't just assume that Utah was gonna take them out after going up two straight games. Like we just did this deja vu moment not once but twice now, and you're still not fully convinced that there's something dangerous about this team. So unlike certain people who have already written the Nuggets off, I don't think they're gonna win this series, but you're playing with fire if you think you're just gonna call this as a 4-0 sweep real casually. Now, we'll see how game 3 goes as of us recording this. But yeah, I think if Miami just plays to their potential and sticks to script in terms of who they are, I mean, they have a more complete team. They might not have the superstars that the Lakers have if they are to move on, but they have the more complete team. And I think that that's something that could bode well against the Lakers. Speaking of the Lakers, my second question, Jake, as a Clippers fan, I don't know if you're gonna not like me for this one, but we'll just play it by ear. LeBron James ranks where in the Mount Rushmore of the NBA if he wins an NBA title this year. That'll be his third title for a different team, fourth title overall. He's gonna have been to the finals. What would this be? His 10th time. Uh, I mean, does he usurp Jordan in your mind in your mindset if he is to win this championship? Is he still number two? Is there two or three people ahead of him? Like, where do you stand if he wins the championship this year?
I still have Jordan as my number one no matter what. I think it would say more about LeBron if he lost in the finals than if he won. Like, I think if he loses, it would take away more from his legacy. I think, yes, it would take a lot away. But as all time, I think he's still the second best. I don't see that continuity that I saw with Jordan and that that willingness to stay with the team that you have and win with those guys because you've seen LeBron jump around. He's switched teams 3 times, going from Cleveland to Miami, back to Cleveland, and now he's in LA. I think with Jordan, minus his little stunt with the Wizards, um, he was with the Bulls his entire career, and you just saw that continuity. And so, yeah, I mean, respect to LeBron. I'm not trying to take away from him. I'm just saying it wouldn't add as much as most people would think, in my opinion.
And honestly, I don't really disagree with that. Like, if you want to be honest, like the way I stand on it, and Jordan stands are Jordan stands. I'll say that I'm a part of that. And LeBron stands are LeBron stands, and they stand on their picket fence as the quote unquote hill to die on, that he's the GOAT and they don't want to hear anything else. And I can't fight them for that either. Playing the era card is kind of a dangerous thing to do now because I think Jordan would kill in this league with the way the rules are set up. But I think that LeBron James has the game and the build to be able to hang in the time frame that Jordan played in. So the question as to whether or not those two guys translate in their respective eras is still something you know, we can't really say we have any proof of. The only way we could physically see it is in like what 2K, and that's not really telling us much. So I genuinely believe that he's still second. I feel like his case is getting scarier though. Saying that you can go to the finals 10 times in your career, what would that be? Second to only Kareem as an individual
He's
player.
like,
And I mean, I guess the retort to that, or a playing quote unquote devil's advocate, would be, but when you make it that many times, you're bound to lose some. Now, losing more than you won obviously hurts the case a little bit. Playing up against a dynastic Warriors team 4 out of those times, it's a little, or what was it? Yeah, 3 or 4 out of those times, that's a little rough. I don't think there's too many people who can say they're going to go into that series and split it even if they face them 4 years in a row that they're going to get two of those championships out of a team like Golden State that was, primed to make a run the way they did. Um, like I said before, I still think that he's second. I feel like his case is getting dangerously close to being something a lot more than what people assumed it would be beforehand. I don't know, man. I think at the end of the day, he's always going to be ironically fighting for second place in the eyes of most, like, historians of the game who consider guys like Michael Jordan, Magic Johnson, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar to be like the greatest players. Like when you have to put LeBron James' resume up against those guys, I think guys like us are always going to stick to, well, we saw what the results were, and those are a lot more significant than the results that LeBron James has given us. And I mean, I don't think that's a bad hill to die on either. Moving away from like the quote unquote old heads a little bit, I kind of want to ask you a question that looks progressive, looks forward towards some of the newer, younger talent as my last little question here for the fill in the blank segment. We've seen a lot of young guys step up significantly. Ironically, it's been a lot of the Kentucky guys, Anthony Davis, Bam Adebayo, Tyler Hero. We've also seen Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown really play extremely well. Jaylen Brown led the team in points with 26 points in game 3 to help lift them to that win. Jason Tatum was flirting with a triple-double. Tyler Hero was pretty much the only guard offensively in game 3 that actually showed up that night, considering Goran Dragic was having a really rough night. And Bam Adebayo has pretty much taken over the internet since his blocking game 1 and has just continued to play well over the course of the last 3 games. Out of the guys that I've mentioned, or maybe anybody else that you may have seen so far in these playoffs, even if it's guys like Jamal Murray for the Nuggets, who do you think, besides maybe an Anthony Davis, let's exclude him for this conversation in particular, who do you think is the best young player still around in these NBA playoffs right now? Not including Anthony Davis.
I'd say best remaining young player would probably have to be Jason Tatum. Um, it would have been, I mean, it's easy to say Jamal Murray just because of the overall outlook. But if you look at the series against the Clippers, he was much, much more contained. And he didn't go off as much because they were throwing bodies at him the whole time and he was actually being defended. Whereas the Jazz, he was being guarded mainly by guys who defense was not their specialty. Um, and so that's nothing to take away from Jamal Murray. I mean, I think he averaged like 35 in that opening like first round series, which is incredible. Like scoring 250-point games. It's a crazy accomplishment. Um, but Jason Tatum, I just see him as more of a consistent player who relies on his own skill and not the opposing defense or offense. He's a guy that you can count on is going to give the opponent some trouble no matter who it is. You could be a really good or a really bad defensive team, and he's still going to be disrupting your game plan. So that's why, I mean, I see Jason Tatum as the best young player still available.
I to play devil's advocate, considering that I am a huge fan of Jason Tatum, I'm gonna lean away from picking my guy, and I'm actually gonna lean on the other young guy in the same exact series, being Bam Adebayo. I think his representation for the 4 or 5 position is a great one because it shows that the quote unquote rim running center has a lot more to offer when honing the skills necessary to play big man in the modern NBA. We've associated with the big man stretch 4, stretch 5, the ability to shoot the 3. They're moving further and further away from the basket. We're starting to get big men who are only averaging like 5-6 rebounds per game, which is like extremely disappointing for anybody who has a guy 7 foot and taller on their team to have them with only like 5 rebounds per game. I think Bam Adebayo is a guy who revolutionizes what the archetype of a rim runner needs to be. If you're gonna be a John Collins-esque player or Clint Capella-esque player, or even rotational guys like Dwight Howard and guys like that nowadays. I feel like Bam Adebayo's ability to crash the boards, offensive and defensive rebound in terms of crashing the boards, being a guy who you can lob the ball to, but also has at least a post move or two to kind of help himself out. And then the biggest part for me with Bam is his ability to facilitate. If you're going to be down low as much as you are with the game is spread out as it is as a rim running center, your ability to get the ball to the guards in the spots they need them. If you're not going to be a guy who can shoot the three your dang self, you better be able to have the ability to get the ball to the guys who can. And that's something that we've seen a lot of bigger name centers struggle with. Joel Embiid is a guy who universally renowned as one of the top centers in the league, but I feel like he floats further and further away from the basket and it hurts his overall game. And he's not a passer to me,
And
which
it
in a
hurts the team's game too. It hurts the
exactly. Exactly. And I feel like as an overall thing, that's been one of the things that's had us question Philadelphia in the idea of, do they keep Joel or do they keep Ben? Can they make it work with the two of them? Is because their skill sets. Ben is a passer but can't stretch the floor. Joel Embiid stretches the floor but can't necessarily facilitate. And it hurts the overall running of the system because it forces whoever the point guard is to make all the necessary actions. The NBA is way too wide open for your center not to have the ability to do anything else but stand under the rim. Like I just feel like that's the main thing. So I think Bam's ability to be a two-way player that maybe he could get some range. I mean, he's still relatively early within his career, hasn't even cracked the prime yet, I would say, and already comes off as a two-way player at his position. He's one of those players. I wouldn't say it's Giannis level of if he gets a three, he's breaking the NBA. I don't think it's like that far fetched to go like that, out on a limb. But his ability to stretch the floor, if he can add that in his game, would just make him even more dangerous than what he already is. And I would say he's one of the top big men in the league. And I kind of feel like he's just been displaying that as of late. So yeah, I mean, I think I would go with Bam, but Jason Tatum's definitely not a bad choice by any stretch of the imagination. And like you said beforehand, honorable mention to our guy Nikola Jokic, who that boy's an animal. So it's almost like you don't even have to say too much about him when it comes to that stuff. Moving off of the fill in the blank stuff, to kind of close things out for today's episode. My Chicago Bulls just hired Billy Donovan as our head coach. Um, the 2020 NBA season is not over with yet. The NBA draft is not until late October, early November, and we already have a coach while we're sitting at home. So, Jake, I'm kind of a little indifferent about this situation. Maybe not the coach hire specifically, but maybe just the timing of the hiring. Um, Sell me on Billy Donovan for this team.
I mean, I'm waiting to see who the next star is in Chicago. Is it going to be a homegrown like Zach LaVine or Kobe White? Or are they going to try to trade for a star and bring in someone to kind of establish a culture there? You see Billy Donovan. Um, I really like this move by the Bulls. It doesn't make much sense to me from Billy Donovan's perspective of moving to a team like the Thunder where they are in the rebuilding process and they have some young guys to build around, and then moving to a team that is also having young guys but with a lot less established talent. So it's kind of a head scratcher for me because I don't see why Billy Donovan would prefer to be in Chicago rather than OKC. But for the Bulls, I mean, I think looking at Billy Donovan just from this past season and how he was able to really coach that team to the playoffs is really amazing and really speaks to his youth development. And I think that's really what Chicago needs right now with guys like Zach LaVine, Wendell Carter Jr., Daniel Gafford, Kobe White, Laurie Markkinen. So they got, I mean, they're swimming in young talent. And I think they're just hoping that Billy Donovan is the guy that kind of can develop all the pieces and turn them into a winning basketball team again.
I mean, everything you said is pretty much where I kind of stand on it. Like it's one of those things where I view it as why our team? You know what I mean? Like you left a pretty good potentially rebuilding situation, with the Thunder. We thought that this coming season, and man, they threw us all for a loop. So who knows? But they have the better draft capital. I feel as though they already have young talent, like you said beforehand, that's relatively more established with Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. I mean, he has more playoff experience in 2 years than what our best player in Zach LaVine probably has. Yeah, pretty much everybody on our team. So just him alone, it's kind of interesting to kind of see where things go with them. We have the
And
fourth overall
especially
pick. Yeah, the fourth pick and the 44th overall pick, which is huge.
and especially with a potentially shorter off season,
Mm-hmm.
it gives the coach more time to adjust and learn the players and kind of establish that chemistry with them. Whereas you see these other teams that are gonna wait and just keep mulling the decision on who to hire, they're just eating away at the time that they could be spending actually developing their team chemistry, stuff like that.
Yeah, so I mean, I think with those things taken into mind, that's the only thing that kind of has me sold on the timing. Other than that, the coach itself caught me off guard a little bit, but I like it from a player development standpoint, which makes me feel a little bit confident because we need it. And with two guys that are gonna probably get some real playing time coming into this year with the fourth pick and the 44th overall pick, I genuinely believe both of those players that we select are probably going to get some serious burn this year. If we plan on trying to make an actual playoff push for the first time in like 3 or 4 years, where we might actually be in the mix potentially, if that. I think Billy's the guy that we would
Orlando made
need.
it.
Yeah, right. So I mean, that definitely gives us some hope. But Billy's definitely the guy that I feel like can help with a culture change. Um, I guess we're just gonna have to see, man. I think the biggest thing moving forward is just what is his link up with our new um president of basketball operations, Karnashovas, where do they go in the draft? That'll tell us a lot about what they want to do moving forward. That kind of leads us into our question of the day. Billy Donovan is the new Bulls head coach. Yay, nay? Do we like the signing? Or was there somebody else that probably the Bulls probably should have gotten instead? Leave that in the comments down below. Jake, another banger with the fill in the blank segment as usual. If you guys enjoy this content, remember to like, comment, subscribe. Check us out on Instagram. MisfitTV page is going crazy right now. Definitely share our content as much as you can. And we will catch you guys on the next one.